Hello again. Have you spent $250 and bought this guitar, but don't know how to use it? Well, don't worry, because I'm here to solve all of your conundrums, excluding your lack of bit. So for the first method, we're going to be covering how to use the guitar without any mods or software that controls it. So, in order to use the guitar, you'll need to press left click and you'll open this screen. If you don't know anything about guitar, you probably have no idea what you're looking at. So, let me explain it for you. This thing with the YouTube thumbnail red circle around it, this is your fretboard. It is a representation of what is on a real guitar. What is to the left of that is your saved chord shapes. The saved chord shapes allow for you to set presets of what notes are being played on what string on the fretboard. To show you guys what I mean by this, here I am making a chord and you see 1 is selected. It is now number 1. So when I switch to 2, it is completely reset. So this thing on the right is a representation of your strings. So on a guitar there are 6 strings. We can pluck the strings either with our mouse cursor or our keyboard. Now we can mess around with what we've learned so far. Here I am, I place some stuff on the fretboard, and I'm switching between them. So here, we get different notes for the same string, because I'm switching between them. So now you might be thinking, oh, I can make noise, but how do I play a song? This is why now we're going to move on to guitar tabs. You can find guitar tabs by searching a song name, space, guitar tabs. So don't ask me for any. If you don't know what a guitar tab looks like, this is what it is. It's pretty much a representation of what the fretboard is. So each number, rather than it being a specific note, it's just a number that represents what fret it's on. Here's the two side by side. And here's the fretboard with the frets labeled. When a tab says 0, it means it is open. It is not on a fret. If you click on a note on the fretboard, it will disable the string. Now we can put everything we've learned to use. What more of there is to learn? I just taught you how to read guitar tabs and now your fingers hurt from pressing the keys. But you know what? It was worth it. Look, you get messages like this and items and free stuff. And it's cool. But I'm a sham. A phony. I've never done any of that stuff. I don't want to strum strings. I want to fish. The music you hear right now is from in-game. This is a MIDI being played by Potato MIDI, but there's several different softwares out there that do this. If you know what a MIDI file is, you're either over the age of 30, a producer, or you've done this in another game before. To make things simple, a MIDI file is just an arrangement of music that the computer can understand. If you've ever messed with the piano roll in FL Studio, you've worked with MIDI before. And if you ever played Doom's music is all in MIDI. So, you can download those and technically play them on the guitar using the original file. The fastest and easiest software to set up is guitarplayer, as the only thing that you need to do is just download it and press play. So why wouldn't you want to use it? Guitarplayer only works at 1080p 16:9, so if you have a monitor that's larger than that or smaller, it's not going to work. This is because it's macro based. Because of that, you can't type in chat or do anything. The window's pretty much unusable. Another thing it does is that when notes aren't in the guitar's range, it just still plays them, but either it'll be the highest or lowest pitch. And it can make a lot of MIDIs just sound terrible, or they're pretty much become incomprehensible messes. Like, it's horrible. It's so bad sometimes. What also sucks about guitarplayer is that you need to convert the MIDIs to its own usable format. So you can't just install MIDIs from online and just expect them to work. You have to download them and then convert them, and sometimes it just crashes when you try to convert it. I have no idea why it does that. So right here, this is using potato MIDI. The advantages to this is that you don't need to have the guitar screen open, and you can interact with everything. You can even be fishing while this plays. You don't even need the guitar out. Something that's beneficial to this over guitar player or midistrummer is that it uses the meows and changes pitch to get things like bass or stuff that's just out of range of the acoustic guitar in this. The only problem is that the setup is a lot more than guitar player. Midistrummer uses the same setup as this does. The advantages though to midistrummer and guitar player is that midistrummer won't play notes that aren't in the guitar's range, and it likely does the same thing with this, and that you don't need to be in the guitar menu. Alright, so here we are on my desktop. This is going to be the guitar player GitHub. I'll put it in the description. You'll just click on the releases, and then you can get to the zip file right here. So here it is. After we've installed it, you'll just want to put your guitar player in some kind of folder somewhere. I'll just put it in my MIDIs folder, which is where everything else is. And then you'll open it up, and you'll see this MIDI processor. So if we grab any of these MIDIs from somewhere, like this Pink Floyd song, and you go in here, you'll place the MIDI into here, and you'll run the MIDI processor. And there you go. We've converted it. So now when you open this up, you'll find your MIDI that you wanted. We go to our game here, and we have guitar player here. We can play the MIDI that we just had. Ever heard Hey You by Pink Floyd? It doesn't sound like that whatsoever. You need to go down here and you need to make sure that you're in 1920 by 1080. Once we have our game set to 16 by 9 and we have guitar player running here, we can pick any of these songs and play them if we want. All you have to do is just press play. As we see here, it says guitar player is playing, input is blocked. So you can't do anything with the window or in the game while it's running a song, because it's clicking on everything in the program itself. If you want to set up midistrummer or potato MIDI, you'll want to get all of these things. You need something like loop MIDI, something to play the MIDIs themselves and then output them to an actual port. This has support for loop MIDI, so these two together are pretty good and they're recommended. If you go to the official installation instructions for stuff like midistrummer or something, they'll point you towards these two programs specifically. Hook, line, and sinker here. This is your mod manager. So your mod manager here, this lets you install stuff. So the things on the left are actually included. So midistrummer you can just get from here and install it. But to get mods and hook, line, and sinker, you need to join the WEBFISHING community Discord. And from there, you'll go to the mod releases page and you'll get tons of results here for all of the mods people have made. And see, you'll see hook, line, and sinkers here. Potatoes MIDI, but there's stuff everywhere. So if you have downloaded all these things, you see them how I see them, you know, they're on your thing. This, if you just installed like loop MIDI, this will be empty, for example. You'll just click this plus button and there it'll make one. That's how you set up your loop MIDI stuff. For the MIDI play, you'll want to go into your MIDI tab here. This won't be here. Your MIDI tab, it'll be output devices. You'll see your loop MIDI port. So you'll want to make sure that's checked. Then you'll just want to drag and drop a MIDI. You want to know where you can get the MIDIs. Just look up the song you want and then space MIDI and you'll find it. You'll probably find an Angel Fire website from 20 years ago that's still hosting the song you want. So if we have both our loop MIDI open our output device is set to MIDI, we should be able to hit play, and it should work. If you have a MIDI that doesn't sound very well, for example this, what we can do here is we can mute this if you really want to get like fancy with it. Not every file that you install though will have these instruments separated. Some of them will have like one channel, and you're pretty much out of luck if that's the case. So that'll make a lot of things that just sound like total garbage into something that isn't so garbage. Because if I unmute it, it sounds like this. So keep that in mind. You'll get a lot of use out of that. That's it. Hopefully this helped you out. If you have any questions, just ask in the comments. Or if you stumble across me in WEBFISHING, you can ask me there. I have plans for making more videos on the game, so if you're interested in those, you can subscribe. And lastly, thank you, and take care of yourself.